Hey guys, welcome back to How to Program in C++ and Lesson 2. And today we're going to talk about the main function, simple output, and comments. So a quick review of last lesson. We talked about the four different variable types, the four basic ones. There are more, like I said, but we have int, float, char, and string. We really focused on these first two right here, the two number ones. We'll get to the other two later on. We talked about how to create a variable, which right here, these first two, which is how we declared a variable. And we talked about how to set it equal to something. So an int variable will be equal to a whole number, right? And a float variable will be equal to a number with a decimal. And then we talked about the four simple arithmetic operators, plus, minus, multiply, and divide. Okay, the main function. Every C++ program requires a main function. It is imperative that you have a main function in your program or your program will not work. It is the foundation of your program. For now, most of our code will be done inside the main function. Later on, when we talk about creating functions, we'll have most of our code within those functions and we'll call them within the main function, but we'll get to all of that later on. But just remember, you need a main function. And then right here is how you create your main function. So you start with int main, and then you have your open close parentheses, and then you start with an open curly bracket. And on Visual Studio, after you hit enter, it'll automatically create your closed curly bracket, which is down here. And then make sure you put return 0 right here, and then end it with a semicolon. We'll talk about return values later on. Not important right now, but okay. Simple output. So this is the part where we can finally see our program come to life. We can really do stuff with it. So output in C++ is incredibly simple. To do output in C++, we use the statement cout. Cout is short for character output. So whenever you start your output line, you always begin with cout, okay? So right here, I went ahead and created a cout statement, which will display hello world with the exclamation mark. We'll talk about what all this means. So right here, you can see two of these and two of these over here. They look like your lesson signs, but they're really called extraction. So we use it to separate our cout expression to include different outputs or to include manipulation for our output. We'll talk about manipulation later on, but you can also think of these operators as send to. So you can kind of see right here. Oh, sorry, let me go back. You kind of see how they're pointing towards hello world and then they're pointing to this right here. Think of it like that. When we talk about input later on, these operators will actually be flipped around. So you think of those then as your greater than signs. So right here we have this end line. It literally means just to end the line of output and then begin a new line of output. So for good programming practices, we will use it at the end of every line just for now. And always make sure to end it in a semicolon or your program will not work. And then you'll be upset and have to go in and fix all that, which takes up time. It's annoying. Okay. Went ahead and did it again. So you can see this right here. This cout statement will output hello world. So you can see how hello world is enclosed within double quotes. That's what we call a string. We talked about strings in our variable types last lesson, but this is how you output your words. You have to have a string. A string is always enclosed within double quotes. the compiler will recognize that, okay, these are double quotes, this is a string, so whatever is inside the double quotes, I have to output to the where you're outputting it to. You can also output variables. We'll get to that. We talked about variables last lesson, obviously. So if you have like a int variable equal to 20 or something, you can output that variable, which will output the number 20. So let's go ahead and look at that. So let's go ahead and set up our, let's go ahead and set it up. So I'm starting from scratch. Okay. So here is our int main function, which is required, like I said. Okay. So let's say I want to output something to the program called, let's say I want to output the dog is running or something like that. It doesn't matter. This is just for, so we begin with our cout. Cout is what you use to output stuff. And then you have your two extraction operators right here. And then we want to output a string, which means you're essentially outputting just words. You can also output numbers. It outputs anything inside the quotes. Doesn't matter what you put in there. So let's say, does it matter? So let's say the dog is running up the road. Doesn't matter. And then remember this is our string. So then we'll put our two extraction operators, and then we'll go ahead and end the line right here. Okay. So this is a full statement. This is a output statement that's going to output this right here, and then it will end the line. So to see this for ourselves, we can go to debug. This is on Visual Studio. It might be different on whatever program you're using, but we'll hit start without debugging. And you can see right here, the dog is running up the road. That's what we wanted. So we press any key to close, and we successfully ran our first program. So that's good. So now we see that this ended the line. So if we went ahead and outputted something different, so like it was a cold Thursday morning, this will output it on one line. It will read this, end the line, and then create a new line. And this right here will be created on the next line underneath it. So if we ran it, go to debug, start without debugging. A quicker way to do it on Visual Studio is to also press Control F5, which is what I do. So if you do that, you can see it outputted this on one line, ended the line, and went to the next line and outputted this. That's what we wanted. That's good. So like I said, you can also output variables. So let's say I have a int variable. So we'll call it int my number. Actually, no, let's call it int num of apples is equal to 10. So we have 10 apples, basically. Let's say we want to do this. So we can always output variables. So when you're outputting a variable, you don't have to enclose it within double quotes. You can just directly put the variable in here. So num of apples. And they're going to end the line. So when we output this variable, it's going to output 10, not the variable name. It will output whatever it's equal to. So if we go ahead and run it, it outputs 10. Okay. We can also output strings and variables on the same cout expression. So what I mean is, let's say we kept this variable, and then we wanted to do cout number of apples. Okay. I wanted to see how many apples I had. So right now it will go ahead and output this, but we can also do this and then put our variable in. So remember, we're separating up our statement by using these extraction operators. You can't put this inside of here. That will not work. So what this will read is number of apples, and then it will do number of apples 10. It will put the 10 right up next to right here, but we're going to put a space, kind of like to separate it. So if we run it, number of apples 10. That's what we wanted. That's good. You can do this multiple times, so you could just keep doing it over and over. So you can just do this and number of apples, and then if you ran it, it will just keep outputting 10 over and over. But if you do it like this, it's going to look like 10, 10, 10, like a number. What I mean is 10, 10, 10, because we didn't separate them with any spaces. So, I think we covered that pretty well for now. We'll get to more advanced outputting stuff later, but this is just a good introduction to output. So, next topic I want to talk about is comments. Comments are really important for your program. They can describe what's going on within the code, or if you have some variables, you can use comments to give definitions. So what I like to do is at the top of every program, put a comment to describe what this program is going to do. So let's say I have a calculator program. I'll put a comment at the top saying, this program is a calculator, blah, 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 blah. Whatever you want to put. Comments are always ignored by the compiler. It will skip over comments. So whatever comment you put will not impact the program in any way, shape, or form. So to begin a single line comment, we type in these two slashes right here, these two slashes, and then everything after those two slashes will be a comment, but just for that line only. You can also do a multi-line comment using this right here, this. So you have a slash and an asterisk, and then you can use comments for several lines. So let me show you what I mean. So let's say I wanted to describe what this program does. So I'm going to put this above everything. So the comment, so I put the two slashes, and you can see how it's green for Visual Studio. That indicates that this is a comment. So this program will output the number of apples. Okay? So the compiler will skip over this and just begin it right here. So if we ran it, obviously we get the same thing. So you can put a comment anywhere on the line, doesn't matter. You can put it right here. So you can do variable to indicate the number of apples. You can put it anywhere. So it's just really useful to use comments. It helps people read your code better. Helps you remember what happened in your code. And then for a multi-line comment, so we'll just do it down here. So you do a slash and then an asterisk. And then Visual Studio will automatically create the other end right here, as you can see. So anything we put inside of this will be a comment. So this is a comment. You can put anything between these two multi-line statements, I guess. You can put anything, but once you get outside of it, that's not a comment anymore. So you have to make sure you have everything you want inside these two for the multi-line comment. So I think that's everything I really wanted to talk about today. Make sure you practice all of this. You know, it's not really much right now, but we're just going to take it step by step. So I want you guys to really master what's really going on, and we'll get to more advanced stuff later. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.